Hi everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict, in which we concentrate solely on Qipco British Champions Day at Ascot, where they raced on the inner course for the races over a distance longer than a mile, and the straight course as well. And they rode slightly differently. We'll get into that as we work our way through all of the contests. Here are the winners and times. For Qipco British Champions Day, they were slow, as you might expect. All the rain that had fallen meant that the ground essentially was heavy, although it was a little bit better on the inner course than on the straight course. It was really brutal for the horses racing on the straight course. Furlong per furlong, as a pretty good time put up by Kyprios in the opening contest. That was an evenly run event. We'll have a look at that in a moment. And also Anmaat, the big shock in the Champions Stakes. What we'll do is have a look at the Race IQ time indexes, and a lot of horses at a score of 0 to 10. We've only got the straight course times here because we don't have enough historical data for racing on the inner course. They don't race on it very often at all at Ascot, so we couldn't put together proper, accurate Race IQ time index scores for you. But we do have 3 on the straight course, and boy was it hard work, and these were very low scores. 3.22, 4.32, that was the QE2. The Balmoral Handicap slightly better at 4.33, and the big sprint, second race on the card, that was a very, very low score. Indeed, the average being 5.59. That tells you all you need to know about the straight course. But we start on the round course, this inner course that did ride a little bit better than the straight course. And Kyprios trying to avenge his defeat in this race last year, where Charyn got the better of him. He comes from stall 7. He beats Sweet William from 8. And Charyn, his old adversary, came out of stall number 1. Early doors, Sweet William was a little bit slowly into stride and had to be rousted along to pick up the bridle. Ryan Moore was happy to just edge his way across on Kyprios, and he was handy throughout. Charyn, down towards the inside, was a little bit keen. Overall, this was quite an evenly run contest. They received a finishing speed percentage of 102.85. So jockeys have ridden quite sensibly here, allowing their horses to finish the race quite strongly and just a percentage above the Race IQ par. But in achieving a par time, what's happened is this race has been run slightly unevenly. They've gone off quite steady, then they've picked the pace up, then it's steadied again, and then they've picked it up again. So it's a bit of a stop-start affair, and thus you can see some horses a bit keen. Charyn, Chaos Chorister towards the rear in a sheepskin noseband, just doing a little bit too much. And that's because Euphrates was just setting a stop-start gallop. The pace actually picked up after 9 furlongs. They really started racing quite a long way out. And Kyprios, ears pricked there, was just way too good for his rivals. I think you'll be able to see when they start to really get racing, because Ryan Moore just has to get after Kyprios quite a long way out. I thought they'd sit chilly for a little bit longer, but they didn't. They just got racing at the 9 furlong pole, and they raced right through to the 13th furlong, and then they started to get tired thereafter. The ground just taking its toll inside the final 3 furlongs. So they're about to pick up the pace. You can see some of the jockeys in the rear. They're getting covered in mud. There's a fair bit of kickback for those horses that were sat in behind. They're just beginning to pick the pace up now, and they haven't really turned in yet. You can just see Ryan there. Look, he's just niggling Kyprios. This is where it's just started to pick up, and they've started to just string out a little bit more. Chaos Chorister's now dropped the bridle, and the pace has definitely lifted here. Ryan keen to be the first one to strike for home. I think he'd be the first to say that he didn't give Kyprios a great ride in this race last year when beaten by Charyn, and he made up his ground too quickly to go and catch the front-running Charyn. Now, in terms of the data achieved here, well, Kyprios is pretty quick in the closing stages. He's actually a deceptively fast horse. He picks up really well through the final 4 furlongs and comes home faster than par. So he's running closing sectionals faster than you would expect for a race of this standard over this trip in these conditions. And the pace is really on now, and this is where Kyprios is at his absolute best, picking up well to get to the front and then run away. He's 13th furlong, rated as very fast, 12.3. Very fast as against the Race IQ par. He then goes through the 15th furlong fast, rated as fast in the 15th, the penultimate, 12.73. And those 2 furlongs really have finished off his rivals. His final furlong, 13.34, just rated as par, but he's done the damage in the previous couple of furlongs in a stop-start race where he had too much for all of his rivals up the home straight. They were racing by the time they got to the home straight, and he just kept rolling, and he did 2 fast furlongs as against par. What a racehorse he is, unbeaten this year, the best stayer in the world for sure. Let's just sum everything up then that we saw. This is the Race IQ summary graphic. You can see that finishing speed percentage, 102.85. Quite a lot of them finishing the race quite well, round about to where you'd expect, just over 100%. And the bottom 3 getting really tired in the closing stages. And his fastest furlong, that 13th furlong of 12.3. And he reached 36.71 miles an hour in that 13th furlong. This is an indication of the stop-start nature of the gallop. You've got the sectional time on the left, you've got the race sector, i.e. furlongs, along the bottom, and you can see that they went off and went steady for a few furlongs. Then the line comes down, so they're quickening up to the 7 furlong point. Then they steady again as the line goes up to 9 furlongs, and then they pick up again and go right down to the 13th furlong. So it was all a bit quick, slow, but Kyprios, in the end, was way too quick for his rivals. Let's turn our attentions to the second race on the card, which was the Sprint, that race that produced that really low time index score of 3.22. That was courtesy of conditions. It was really brutal out there on the straight course. OK, let's have a look and see what happened in this and look at where the principles are drawn. The winner, Kind of Blue, 17, Swing Along from 13, Flora Bermuda was 3rd from 20, and Beauvatier not on there, but he was 4th from stall number 19. Because it's a sprint, let's have a look and see how quickly they came out of the stalls and got to 20 miles an hour, according to the Race IQ data. An Art Power grey horse in the middle, defending his title. He was the fastest, 3.33 seconds to 20 miles an hour. Kind of Blue, 10th fastest, 3.57 seconds. The horse who's got nowhere near as much experience as Art Power. Kind of Blue, 4 from the right, with the green sleeves, the Wathnan colours, the blue body and the red cap. They went very fast. They went very hard in the early part of this race. The first 2 furlongs, the fastest furlongs in the race, rated as very fast the first furlong against the Race IQ par, and fast the second furlong. Art Power really rolling along, 12.26 in the 11.6 second furlong. Thereafter, they got slower and slower as the race went on. The winner did an 11.6 second furlong, and then he just slowed down through the race, but still won. 11.82, 11.9, 12.95, 14.29. He didn't get quicker as the race went on. He just kept going better than his rivals. Coming to just get to the front now, to get to Swing Along and run out a ready winner in a race, as I said, that was brutal. Finishing speed percentage for him, 94.49, 99.49, with the par being 99.46. He's very tired out there, and his final furlong of 14.29 is really slow. Kyprios was faster, over 2 miles, than this horse finished in the Sprint. He was absolutely shattered in the closing stages. His final 2 furlongs, 27.24, a very weary 27.24, but he was just better than everything else on the day, from the family of the Tin Man and Deacon Blues, for the James Fanshawe team, a family that he knows really well and a family that really likes soft ground. But look at this finishing speed percentage, 94.49, when the par you would expect for a race of this quality at Ascot, 99.46. They're absolutely walking out there. Montasib did well. You can see there the yellow stars running on quite nicely at the end. He did best of those from a low draw. So I think you could rate him as still being in form. He's really closing them down, actually, in the closing stages. So he finished off quite well compared to some of the others. His final furlong, 14.4, better than most of those in the race. But it was a real slow motion finish. Being prominent was relatively important. Art Power, who made the running, went way too fast. He got tired and dropped away. Swing Along did well. He was always up there. He did quite well. Beauvatier in 4th, lacked a little bit of running room at one point, but he was just plodding along like the rest of them in the closing stages. It was a war of attrition out there with no horse finishing off strongly at all. Because, as you can see from the par times, they went really hard. They were green in the early part of the race, all of them going fast through those first 2 furlongs and then progressively getting slower and slower and slower. Most of them very slow. Blue very slow towards the end of the race, but Kind of Blue not slowing down quite as quickly as the rest of them. Look at the final 2 furlongs. 27.24 for him, 27.33 swing along, and 27.27 for Flora of Bermuda. Bavatier finished off a bit quicker, but slow times, hard work in the Qipco British Champions Sprint. Okay, let's have a look at one of the best performances on Qipco British Champions Day. It came in the fillies and mares over 1.5 miles, and the winner, you remember, was Kalpana. This is the 4th time that she has featured on the verdict this summer. She featured when she won at Newmarket, Hamilton, Kempton, and now Ascot from stall 11. She got the better wingspan from 10, and Tiffany from stall number 6. So let's see how this race panned out. Of course, we're back on the round course, the inner round course. Wingspan was quickest to 20 miles an hour and made the running under Sean Levy, 2.26 seconds. Kalpana was 3rd fastest into stride at 2.3 seconds, but then was dropped out by William Buick and given a patient ride. He was prepared to sit and wait on her. It's worth quickly revisiting what she's achieved this season. She won a handicap on the start of the season at Newmarket when she featured here on the verdict. She won by 10 lengths. And she looked like a thorough stayer that day. And in a subsequent race, she looked like a real stayer as well. But then she showed a bright turn of foot when she won the Glasgow Stakes and the Kempton September Stakes. In slowly run races, she was able to quicken up really well. So she's got a bit of everything. She stays well, but she's got a turn of foot. And this was a decisive performance from her. First 3 furlongs here, they went quite hard. Sean Levy wanted to go fast to establish a lead on Wingspan. Horse who was bred to win this race. His mother, Hydrangea, won it a few years ago. And then they steadied the pace. So the first 3 were rated as fast, but the next 3 were rated as quite slow, quite steady. So it was a fast, slow, fast race, really. And that meant that they recorded quite a good finishing speed percentage in the end in this contest, because they were able to save a bit of energy in that slow part, that middle part of the race. The sectional, the finishing speed percentage she achieved, Kalpana, 102.18, with par being 100.86. So she's 2.18% quicker in the final 3 furlongs than the rest of the race. So she's picked up pretty well in the closing stages, and that's courtesy of that middle section, saving energy from after 4 furlongs right through to 7 furlongs. They went 12.78, 13.8, 13.94 she went, and then a 13.4, and then picked up with about 4 to go. So saving energy for a strong finish on ground that was slightly better than on the straight course, I think. I think we'd have to rate the straight course as heavy. This was soft. Perhaps heavy in places as they turned in, but I think it was just soft. Now she's picking up really well, Kalpana, much better than her rivals. 10 furlong, 12.29. She followed that up nicely with an 11th furlong of 12.33. Those 2 furlongs, sustained speed from Kalpana, too much for her rivals. Wingspan keeping on quite well. The last furlong slow. This is courtesy of the ground. Look at that. 13.19. It's a very slow final furlong from her, but she's done the damage, rather like Kyprios did with 2 strong furlongs that's put her rivals away. And I think she's won with a little bit in hand in the end, in a race that wasn't as stop-start as the Kyprios race, but it was definitely what I would call an OXO race. Slow to start with, and then, fast to start with, then slow, and then quite fast at the end. There's her finishing speed percentage that I mentioned, 102.18. So she's finished off pretty strongly compared to her rivals, and that's one of the race. She's a very versatile and very useful mare. I wonder whether they'd think about the fillies and mares at Del Mar, because she'd have a good chance there, because she's got everything. She stays 1.5 miles, and she's got speed, and seemingly she handles all conditions as well. Here's the race IQ sectional data telling you that the race was fast in the early part of it. That first furlong, second furlong fast too, third furlong fast. Then look where they steadied it. When you get your blue numbers, Wingspan has steadied it with a 12.79, 13.66, 13.84 and 13.44. Then they pick up. They run a par furlong and then they pick up. But look at Kalpana's line. The only horse in the race to be able to run 3 fast furlongs in a row. And that's why she was much better than her rivals. She is very good indeed. William Buick coming back in on her for the Andrew Balding team. She's a most progressive and one of the most improved mares in training. Back onto the straight course now for the QE2. And we had a very similar contest to the sprint in that they went quite hard in the early part of the race and then finished tired. Let's have a look at it. Charyn, let me remind you, is the winner from stall 8, beating Factor Cheval from stall number 3. Kalpana from 9 was 3rd and Dancing Gemini was 4th. Coming from stall number 4, good run from Dancing Gemini. Let's have a look and see what happened in the early part of this race. And what happened was there was a pretty strong gallop. Ryan Moore went forward on Henry Longfellow. He was keen to be up there. Kalpana was quite close to the pace as well, and Prague pushed forward too, having been a little bit slowly into stride. So the early pace was very strong, and you can rate this is a race of 2 halves really. The first 4 furlongs were quick, and then they got tired in the closing stages, but Charyn was the one who kept on best. He's had a tremendous season, winning yet another Group 1. Very unlucky in France on his previous start. He just got going too late, but here he's tracking the pace. He's in behind Henry Longfellow, the grey horse under Sylvester de Souza. Slightly controversial finish because he does drift quite badly to his left in the closing stages, and he causes some interference to Factor Cheval, who's a horse with a big white face towards the rear. He's run really well yet again. He ran well in the Sussex Stakes where he did too much too soon in that race. Here he was delivered perfectly, but he does get hampered and intimidated in the closing stages. Now Charyn is beginning to pick up and make his move. He went through 12.83, that's the 6th furlong he picked up, and then the last furlong he was the only horse to go under 14 seconds as well, so that's telling us off a strong gallop. He was able to keep going better than most of the other horses. He went 13.83 there in his last furlong, and he just kept rolling, but he's rolling whilst under a right-hand drive, and for me he's intimidating Factor Cheval. There was 2 or 3 bumps. Stewards didn't have an official look. Of course they looked at it, and Sylvester de Souza had to go before them, and I think he got a ban for careless riding, but in some jurisdictions that would have been enough to throw Charyn out. Not in ours, not under our rules, fair enough, because he's won by too far. He's won pretty decisively in the end, but you just watch this now as he rolls around under de Souza. He's entitled to. They've gone very hard in this race, and they're finishing tired. Finishing speed percentage 96.51. So they're slow inside the final couple of furlongs. All good at this stage, but now watch as Charyn picks up. Factor Cheval now is coming with his run. Now Charyn goes towards him. Intimidation, bump, another bump. Then Sylvester straightens this horse out. What he should have done is switch his whip. For sure he should have switched to his left hand. Another bump there, and now he'll come again, and another bump there, and more intimidation. It didn't allow Factor Cheval to finish with one sort of clean run. I mean, he wasn't going to quicken up in this ground. He would have been closer though, wouldn't he? But for that interference, you can't say that he would have won. So you can't change the result around. But it is a fact that interference occurred. But Charyn, rather like the sprint, just keeping going better than his rivals. His class getting him through in the end. He's improved and improved all season, this fella, since winning the Bet365 Mile and the Queen Anne. He's got better and better for Roger Varian. And it might be that he goes to Hong Kong now. Look at those finishing speed percentages, all well under 100. They're all getting really tired after a very strong first 4 furlongs. He was 4th fastest to 20 miles an hour, but always prominent. And the fastest furlong for most of the horses in the race, the 2nd furlong. That's because they went so quick in the early part of the race. That is shown to you nicely by the Race IQ pass sectionals. You can see how fast they went in the early part of the race, faster than par for 4 furlongs. And then it was a case of them getting tired and who could keep going best. And it was Charyn with 27.48 for his final couple of furlongs compared to 27.57 for Factor Cheval. But we should factor in that interference as well. What a season Charyn has had. Let's take a look at the big one, the Champion Stakes. Dubbed as a duel between Calandagan and Economics. They dominated the market, but as it turned out, Anmaat from the Owen Burrows yard was just way too good for them. He beating Calandagan into 2nd place. Royal Rhyme was 3rd, and Economics, well, very disappointing. We'll get to him in a moment. Anmaat from stall number 5. Calandagan from stall 1, that's quite relevant to the run he gets, and Royal Rhyme from stall number 2 was 3rd. He's run an absolute blinder on ground that suits him. Look at Calandagan, he stands still when the gates open. That really hasn't helped him at all. So therefore, we need to just look and see how much it's hampered him, courtesy of the Race IQ brake speed data, 0 to 20 miles an hour. Royal Rhyme quickest, 1.9 seconds. That's quick. Anmaat, 2.07 seconds. He was third fastest into stride. But look at Calandagan. Took him 2.36 seconds to get to 20 miles an hour. And therefore, he is going to get boxed in because he's down on the rail anyway. He is a hold-up horse, as we remember from the Jubbont International. He was held up there and he flew home, and the only horse to chase properly behind City of Troy. He closed off really strongly there, fine turn of foot. But that hasn't helped his chance here at all. He's had to use a little bit of energy just to get in mid-division. So that may have cost him. He's not beaten too far at all. Look at Anmaat. He's mid-div at this stage. Now, this is a race that was run quite strongly early on. The horse is trying to establish a position, and then they got tired in the closing stages. It's kind of a theme, really, for Ascot on Saturday, finishing quite slowly, really. Continuous took them along in the early part of the race, presumably trying to go a nice, even gallop for Ryan Moore in Los Angeles, who sat up in second spot. Overall, this was quite evenly run, really. 99.74, the finishing speed percentage. Par's 102, just over 102.51. So they're just under par. That's because they went quite hard in the early part of the contest. And then they got tired in the closing stages. This wasn't a race that was won by a horse quickening up and going past rivals. It was about a horse being able to stay on stronger than everything else, and that was Anmaat, who gets plenty of trouble in running, and so does Calandagan. The initial impression, certainly mine after the race, was that Calandagan had been unlucky, missing the break and then getting trouble. But if you watch the run that Anmaat gets, well, he gets a fair bit of trouble as well. He's virtually upsides Calandagan. There they are, in behind Los Angeles, and the King's Gambit towards the outside as well. Now they're going to get even more trouble. Nowhere to go for either of them. Persica coming down the outside of the field. Economics with a big white face. Still trouble for them both. And Jim Crowley's got shuffled right back. Right back. Calandagan's got first go on Anmaat now, really. He can pick up between horses, goes past Continuous. Looks like he's going to win here, because we know he's got a bit of a change of gear. But no, Anmaat picks up really well and comes home very strongly. His final furlong, well, it was really impressive. It was the 12.8 seconds, and it was faster than his second last furlong, and he was the only horse under 13 seconds in the final furlong. He came home really well once he got out, and I think getting some trouble has helped him, because he's just conserved a bit of energy. While everything else is kicking and under pressure, he's got shuffled back, and he's been able to deliver his challenge later than the others. And because of that, he saved his energy just for a little bit longer. You saw the finishing speed percentage there. He's able to finish off relatively evenly, but he didn't quicken, really. He just kept going. He just stayed on strongly to get to Calandagan, who slightly got first run on him. I think if Calandagan had broken out of the stalls a bit better, he might have been very close to winning, but he didn't, and this horse has just stayed on really well through the final two furlongs. 28.11 he recorded going through those. But look at him coming back in. It's a tremendous training performance from the Owen Burrows team. Jim Crowley was absolutely delighted, as you might expect. There's the data telling you it was quite evenly run. The second furlong, the fastest in the race for these horses, 11.61 for Anmaat through that furlong. But the eye-catching bit of that performance was his final furlong, where he came home much stronger than the rest of the field. He reached 39.18 miles an hour. That was his top speed in the second furlong. Quite fast the early part of the race. They then got tired in the ground. It was a bit of a slow motion finish for some of them, but not Anmaat. And the action concluded on Saturday at Ascot with the Balmoral Handicap. Always very competitive, and this year was no different at all. Let's see what happened in this contest. It was won by the great Christophe Soumillon on Carry the One, who beat Latam, Witch Hunter and Thunder Run. Stall 5 beats 22, beats 18. Right, let's see how they came out of the stalls. The fastest horse, and that was very quick indeed, Mursky, 1.89 seconds, that's quick. Carry the One, very slowly up to 20 miles an hour, 2.56 seconds. And the fact that he won, that tells a bit of a tale, really, because this was a race that was very strongly run through the first 4 furlongs, and being held up was pretty important. The winner, Carry the One, was 20th after 2 furlongs. The second, Latam, was 13th. The third, Witch Hunter, was 16th. That's where they were positioned through those fast first couple of furlongs. The third furlong for most horses was rated as being very fast. So they've gone really hard for 4 furlongs, and then they've got tired in the latter part of the race. If I tell you that the final furlong was 14.48 for Carry the One, and we just looked at the Champion Stakes where the final furlong was way quicker than that at 12.8. So a very slow final furlong here on the back of this strong gallop. But the first 3 really sensibly ridden, as you might expect from Christophe Soumia. Also, you might expect the finishing speed percentage to be low, and it really was 94.8 with a par of 101.3. So once again, rather like the Sprint, rather like Charyn in the QE2, they are crawling once again in the closing stages. The winner, 6 furlong, 12.56, which was just about as good as he could do, really. And then the final 2 furlongs, well, they were slow. I'm going to highlight them because they were really slow. 28.11. Wow, averaging over 14 seconds per furlong. But yet, look how he's closing them down towards the outside, going past Ryan Moore on Thunder Run, and seemingly running on quite strongly. But he is walking, and that tells you a lot about the rest in behind. Absolutely legless in the closing stages. But he saved a bit of energy early on under Soumia, held up in a very strongly run race, and he's able to come home and win in a race that was, well, it didn't achieve a very good final time. Time index of 4.33, just gone way too hard early on. You thought they would have got a bit steadier, really. The jockeys by now, at the end of the card, would understand how it was riding on the straight course, but they seemed like they wanted to go a really hard gallop early on, and they paid for that latterly. There's that time index score of 4.33. The Race IQ analysing the race at that final time as being slow. But Carry the One for the Michael Bell team, and Soumia wins the Balmoral Handicap and does it pretty well. But look at them in behind, they're strung out all over the place, courtesy of that very strong gallop in stamina-sapping ground. The Race IQ sectionals for you, showing just how fast they went early on. Carry the One, there he was in 20th, going 12.28 in the third furlong and 12.37 in the fourth. So those last furlongs, look at that, 14.48, that's really slow, and 28.11 for the final couple of furlongs. Really slow finish in the Balmoral Handicap, and that's what happened on the straight course at Ascot on Saturday. It was the same in the Sprint, and it was the same in the QE2 as well. Fast early gallop and slow finish, slightly better ground on the round course, and I think slightly better performances, particularly from Kalpana. I thought she was absolutely brilliant in the Fillies and Mares, and Anmaat springing a bit of a surprise in the Champion Stakes, but the way he surged home was very impressive indeed. That's it for this run of the verdict this season. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.